Okay, so hi everyone, Adriana here. So today we're going to have a very interesting interview with Shannon. So Shannon, welcome. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do?
Sure. So I am a coach working online. I kind of coach people for what I like to call is flourishing health. So just thinking about health from the broadest perspective. So this could include weight loss, but we're also making sure that we're taking care of someone's physical health, psychological health, and just general overall well-being, which is how I kind of got into the topic of body image, because I realized that, hang on a minute, like the reason that people want to diet and to change their bodies is usually because they want to improve their confidence or feel better about themselves. And body image and dietary restraint kind of go hand in hand. So I thought, well, I need to learn a little bit more about this so that I can help people, again, not just make those physical changes, but those psychological changes as well. So I coach people online. I also mentor. I'm currently living in Bali. I kind of move around a bit in normal times. And I like to train. I'm training jiu-jitsu at the moment and kickboxing, some other striking classes, probably pick up surfing soon. So that's a little bit about me and my interests. I guess I just think about health from a very broad perspective, which means like all these things are important, and I like to help clients with that as well.
Okay, so I have been following you for quite a while, and every single time you post something, and I was like, oh my God, this is so interesting, because that's like your view on health is exactly the same kind of how I see things. So kind of like through nutrition and body image and fitness and kind of general life satisfaction that actually contributes for someone's well-being. So how exactly, and what was the reason why did you get into this industry?
I think, I started off with law, and then I remember just studying it just because I didn't really have anything else to do. And one of my tutors said something along the lines of, if you're not researching this in your spare time out of interest, and you're in the wrong place. I was like, oh no, I'm in the wrong place. Kind of knew that anyway, but that kind of really got me thinking. And then I was thinking about, well, what am I, researching in my spare time? And I was always interested in nutrition. But then I think the reason that I was interested in nutrition was because I was actually interested in improving health. And now I know that nutrition is just one tiny part of that. So I started with MNU, so that I'm a registered nutritionist. And then I began to explore different therapeutic approaches to change. So I got trained in motivational interviewing and acceptance and commitment therapy, just so that I could take, again, not only a broad perspective on health, but have a number of different tools and approaches to be able to help someone. So that's kind of, I guess, how I got into it, was by starting somewhere and then realizing, oh, actually what I want to help people with is much bigger than just talking about food, and usually food isn't really the problem either. So that's kind of the direction that I took, and I guess I'm continuing to go down that route.
Okay, so what do you come across, kind of what is the most common issue when someone comes to you and tells you they have issue with food or kind of with their health? But what do you see it's kind of really common traits in between those people who really struggle?
Yeah, usually it's a case of a lot of food preoccupation. So a lot of thoughts about food and a lot of time and energy and attention going into micromanaging someone's intake, or restrictive dieting as well, and then overeating as a result, coupled with, usually just in general, a desire to change how they look for the hopes of improving how they feel about themselves, and with the implications that, once they've achieved this perfect body, their life will be a lot better. They'll have more friends, they'll be more attractive to their partners, they'll generally be happier overall. So those are the types of kind of, I guess, expectations that someone has. And I can see how that can manifest in some pretty restrictive eating behaviors, and then just a lot of concern about how they look. And usually they feel like they're holding themselves back as well, from important things in their life because of their concerns about their appearance.
Okay, so so kind of what is your kind of main approach that you can say to someone, kind of that this is kind of where you need to start working on? So what is your approach?
It's very it depends from person to person. When someone comes to work with me, usually at this stage, because of the type of content that I put out and the topics that I talk about, the clients that I work with generally arrive with a sense of awareness of their problems. Like they will say, my relationship with food needs work, or my body image needs work. So they're very aware of that. Whereas other people that I may have worked with in the past, or still get the odd client come through, want to focus on the diet, even when they can see that actually I'm just struggling to stick to a healthy eating pattern because I'm skipping meals, restricting, cutting out certain foods, which is leading to overeating later. So my diet isn't successful, and I have intense dissatisfaction with how I look. So it depends at what level of awareness someone is at and what they want to start on as well, because it can be very difficult to begin working on things like body image or relationship with food when that desire to diet is very strong. So we kind of talk a lot about this and we come up with an approach together. And I guess it just depends on what the client's most urgent concerns are. So when they sign up, we'll go through a lot of different psychometric testing to get an idea of their self-talk, to get an idea of where their body image is at, and their relationship with food. So we can kind of assess I guess just how much of an impact this is having on someone's life, and then talk about where they think may be the best place to start. So it's a bit of a collaboration, really, because again, it's very difficult to say to someone, hey, you need to work on this, whereas their intentions are, no, I just want to diet and lose weight. So yeah, it would be a combination of, here's the assessment, what do you think? Let's have a chat about this.
Okay, so you obviously mentioned like relationship with food and the body image, and I've seen obviously like in your post that that's obviously you talk a lot about. So how is it? So for obviously for my clients, kind of just to give them an insight. So when it comes to negative body image, so what are the key factors that actually people start being so negative about themselves?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start by defining what body image is, because it actually has little to do with our physical bodies and much more about how we see ourselves, how we think about our bodies, how we feel about our bodies, and then how we behave in relation to those thoughts and feelings. So with a negative body image, people will generally be fairly dissatisfied with certain parts of their appearance, and their appearance will be a very important part of who they are. So they'll tend to derive a lot of their self-worth based on their appearance. And there are so many factors that go into influencing how we feel about ourselves. And we can consider those from two different perspectives. You've got the historical influences, so basically all the things that have happened up until now to form your body image. And then you've got current factors, so things that maintain your perceptions of yourself. With the historical influences, one of the biggest contributors towards our attitudes towards ourselves would be cultural socialization and media messaging. So one interesting kind of fact about this is that we used to see the thin ideal internalization. So people, particularly women, wanting to be like fashion model slim, because that was what we saw in the media. And again, we associate success with that kind of body. That still exists, but now we're also seeing the rise of the muscular and the lean ideal. So women who want to be toned, want to look fit. And this is in part due to the rise of fitness advertising and the sexualization of fitness, like athletes on the front cover of magazines, for example. So we see these messages and we think, oh, okay, this woman has this awesome body. If I looked like that, then I would have the same amount of success as her. So that's one huge factor. And we've also got social media now to add into the mix. And then we've also got interpersonal experiences. So our relationship with our mothers, if we grew up in a household where our mum was always trying to diet or to change her appearance, we sort of begin to model those behaviors and we learn, oh, hang on, my mum, is concerned about how she looks. Therefore, I should probably care about this too. You've also got physical characteristics, so the changes that your body goes through puberty, or a more recent example, maybe something like pregnancy. And then you've also got certain personality traits that are just at an increased risk of developing body image dissatisfaction. So people who have like perfectionist tendencies, maybe super self-critical, and place a lot of their esteem on achieving like the perfect body. And then with the current factors that influence this, again, you've got the media. We constantly kind of compare ourselves to images that we see online, and we make social comparisons with our friends and our families, particularly people who we feel like fairly similar to. That can cause a lot of distress. We're making these upward comparisons to people who we believe look better than ourselves, and we feel like we don't match up. There's also just like general conversations that we have with our friends and our families. You know, we're constantly talking about our appearance and how important it is to look better. Then again, that just reinforces that idea that we should tightly control how we look. Things like body checking, so weighing yourself on the scale, looking at yourself in the mirror, pinching certain parts of your body, can all also contribute and reinforce that idea that I should tightly control my appearance. So there are so many factors that influence how we feel about ourselves, which is why it can be quite difficult to work on, because most of the time we're unaware of these things occurring. We catch ourselves making comparisons to people, but we don't see the comparisons as the issue. We see ourselves as the issue. And that really is why, again, it can be so difficult to challenge that.
Okay, this is really interesting because it's because obviously I have got kids in school, and every time I take my kids to school, and mums are in the school playground, and it's just so interesting how much people talk about their weight, their intention to lose weight, to eat better, and it's just literally wherever I go, it's people just talk about how they look and how they feel, and they are all having an intention of losing weight. So, how would you say? There is a journey. So let's say someone who has a negative body image. So in your experience, how long does it take that people start shifting the way they see themselves, so they actually start being happy of who they are rather than constantly chasing some perfect example of what they should be? So what is your what do you think it's kind of the journey from negative to positive body image?
Yeah, it's very difficult to say because, again, it depends on a number of factors. But what I will say is that I've even been surprised at the degree of change that I've been able to see in just a short period of time. And things that can influence that are someone's commitment to change. Because, for example, challenging some of these thoughts and assumptions that you have about your body can be very overwhelming. You know, it can be very difficult to do. So there has to be a degree of willingness to experience that and do the difficult internal work. There has to be a belief that, the knowledge that this actually is effective, so therefore I'm going to try it out. It helps to have someone to talk to as well, so how much you trust the person that you're working with is going to be a huge factor in that. But generally, and also it will depend on just how much that ideal body has been internalized. So there are some people who are just, it's, there are parts of my body I don't like, it's not the end of the world, but I would like to feel a bit better, versus I've been going to extreme lengths to change how I look because my whole self-worth depends on it. So there is like a spectrum of, I guess, body image dissatisfaction. And then with a positive body image, it's a separate construct to a negative body image. So it's not just like the opposite, and the absence of a negative body image doesn't necessarily promote a positive body image. So really we want to work on both if someone wants to feel better about themselves overall. And through doing the work of, for example, monitoring your thoughts about your body and being able to challenge those, again, it really does help to have someone take you through it. It's likely to speed up that process. I've seen people just change their entire attitude towards themselves, towards their food, in even just like 6 to 8 weeks. And I've been like surprised, because I've looked at the research and like, okay, I can see that it's effective, but putting it into practice has been really eye-opening. Just it's really, I guess, encouraging to see that, wow, like when this person came to me, I thought that's, they're kind of psychosocial functioning is pretty impaired. I wonder how long this will take. And then for the feedback to come through each week, it's like, oh, okay, this is awesome. You know, people can change their minds and their attitudes pretty quickly. I will say as well that it's going to be like an ongoing process. Part of developing a positive body image is to develop a protective filter. So when you think about these factors that influence how we feel about ourselves, we can consider things like social comparisons and media messaging as body image threats. And we have to constantly interpret that in a protective manner. So we can still go out there and live our normal lives. You know, we see these pictures and we may think, you know, for a moment, oh, wouldn't it be nice if that was me or whatever? And then you can catch yourself doing that and remind yourself again of your good qualities. And it's not about achieving the perfect body or feeling 100% about yourself day in, day out. It's just about feeling respect, appreciation, gratitude towards what you have, and then treating yourself accordingly.
Okay, so that is just so brilliant. So what would you say to someone? So let's say kind of where everything kind of needs to start. It's obviously like they're kind of on what they're focusing on, because people who are very negative about their appearance is they are focusing on negatives. So how would you say to someone kind of on what they should start focusing on to start kind of improving just their relationship with their body?
Yeah, I find that developing awareness of just how much of an impact your current perceptions about your body have on your quality of life can be really insightful and really eye-opening. And that can serve as the fuel to again actually work on this, because it's one thing to be like, oh, okay, I can see the importance of this, and it's another thing to actually go through and do the difficult work of challenging your thoughts. So I think to really be able to see, this is exactly how I'm holding myself back. You know, when I'm worrying about my food and my body, what am I not doing? I'm not engaging in my life, you know, the way that I want to be. So I recommend for people starting off to keep something like a body image diary, to be able to monitor their thoughts towards themselves. And these can be positive or, you know, negative thoughts. It's maybe a good idea to keep an awareness of both, because again, if someone is very invested in the idea that their body is the problem and not their attitudes towards their body, this exercise can be very helpful to illustrate that, hang on a minute, my attitudes towards myself probably fluctuate far more often than my physical body changes. Just think back to this past week. You've probably had days where you felt pretty good, and you may have had days where you felt not so good, whereas your appearance has been the same all week long, you know, which indicates there's other things here influencing how I feel about myself. And when you can keep track of that, you can let go of the idea of needing to change your body so much. And I will preface this by saying that's not to mean that you can't change how you look whatsoever. It's just about making sure that change is coming from a healthy place, and that you're not going to extreme measures that may be detrimental to your health in order to achieve this perfect body. So I think keeping a diary about your thoughts and your feelings towards your body and the events that have activated those thoughts and feelings, and then being able to recognize the way that you're talking to yourself. A lot of people will tend to be very self-critical, so developing a bit of a kinder inner voice can be very helpful for promoting a positive body image. So that would be one thing. I would also be very mindful of when you compare yourselves to others. And this is something that could come up when you fill out your body image diary. Just notice just how often you're making these comparisons to other people. And then think about, what am I actually comparing here? Usually we'll compare the parts of ourselves that we like the least against someone else's strongest points. So it's a bit of an unfair comparison. And usually our comparisons are pretty biased as well. So you may be looking at pictures on social media that are representing maybe like the top end of the population in terms of, I don't know, physical characteristics or even athletic abilities, who usually have like a sporting body that may be attractive to some. We're looking at these people and thinking that you know, everyone looks like this, I need to look this way, whereas in reality it's just a very small portion of the population. And realize that when you're comparing your body to someone else, not only are you making yourself feel bad, but you are objectifying that other person as well, because there's more to them than just their body. So think about the things that you're not thinking about. You know, what about your personality traits, who you are, what's really important to you? And these are the types of things that we miss when we're just looking at how everyone looks. One really nice exercise to help develop a little bit more gratitude and appreciation for your body is to just write about all of the things that you appreciate that your body does for you. So if I ask you, you know, name one thing that you're grateful for that your body allows you to do, what would you say just off the top of your head?
Is it for me?
Yeah.
What is it to me? Oh, well, I love my body. So I just think it's just feeling really vibrant, and to be able to do things like being stronger and to be pain-free and illness-free as well.
Yeah, that's one thing that we don't think about. I mean, I bet everyone, when they get a cold and their nose is all blocked up, they're like, damn it, why do I never appreciate all the times where I can actually just breathe normally? So it's such a pain in the ass, you know, things like that. So the fact that you're in good health, even if you're not in perfect health, there'll be parts of your body that are likely functioning well, and that's something to be grateful for. Think about your physical capabilities as well. The fact that your body allows you to move in a way that you enjoy, you know, whether that's running, yoga, cycling, whatever it is, your sports performance or getting stronger in the gym. These are just a few of the physical capacities that your body has. But also, what about the fact that you have 5 senses that allow you to see beautiful sights, or look at someone's face when you tell them that you love them, or listening to your favorite music, you know, all of these things that we're able to do. And thinking about, you know, how boring would life be if I didn't have any of that? Also, one example that I really like that a client gave was the fact that she was able to give birth to a new life. You know, again, that's something to be pretty grateful for. And we tend to forget about those things, which is normal. You know, it's normal to do that, which is why it's quite nice to have an intentional practice where you remind yourself of these things, because we do forget and we do get caught up in our day-to-day life. And, you know, if we see these people that we think look better, suddenly our attention is distracted away from the things that are important. So I think that's one really nice exercise to go through from time to time. And then one other suggestion would be to, when you've got that awareness of just how much your body image is impacting your day-to-day life, think about all of the other things that you still care about. Because one of the most damaging parts of having a negative body image is that we tend to marginalize other aspects of our life. So we do have all of these things that are important to us. We care about our family, we care about our career, but when we're so caught up in how we look and the impact of that, we tend to forget about those things. So we may refuse to let people cook for us because we're trying to tightly control our own diet. We don't want to go out because we don't feel like we look good enough. We don't want to wear the clothes that we'd love to wear because, you know, our bodies don't look good enough in them. We won't wear a bikini on the beach. We won't put ourselves out there, all because we're afraid of what people may think of how we look, or just feelings that we're not matching up. So think about all of the things that are important to you and try and put some of your time and energy back into those things, because that's what you're missing out on. And as we said before, you know, caring about your body and how you look isn't necessarily a problem, but it becomes problematic when it takes over from the other things that are also important to you. So you can have intentions to look a certain way. You know, you might want to wear clothes that you enjoy, and these are all fine, but it's only
I've got a little hamster here. Go. Have a good day. Say hello to Shannon.
Hello.
Come on, go quick.
I just want to ask you something. I think Edna and Laura should come at the same day.
Okay, yeah, deal. Okay, I love you. Bye. Close the door. Close the door.
so cute.
Oh, she's like crawling.
Yeah. So just to summarize the few of the things that I mentioned, I recommend keeping a body image diary of the things that have triggered how you feel about yourself and the types of things that you're saying to yourself in those situations. I can't go into, you know, all the detail now about how to challenge those thoughts, but I have a couple of articles on my website that may be helpful if you do decide to keep a body image diary and you notice some thought patterns crop up. Just having a read of how to challenge those thoughts may be quite helpful. And then putting some time and energy back into all of the other important things in your life is super crucial. Thinking about all the things that you appreciate about your body. And then lastly, I would just be aware of how often you perform body checking behaviors. So as I mentioned before, this could be things like stepping on the scale, pinching certain parts of your body, comparing yourself to others. Think about how often you do those and ask yourself, next time you're looking at yourself in the mirror, ask yourself, what am I looking for and why? What am I hoping to find here? And how am I feeling right now? Because it's either a case of we're feeling a little bit down and we're looking at our bodies for a pick-me-up because we derive a lot of satisfaction from how we look, or we're feeling, pretty down and we're looking at our bodies in order to take out our frustrations on our bodies and thinking about all these things that we need to change and scrutinizing our appearance. And again, all that does is just feeding to the thought pattern that it's important for me to change how I look. So actually, by minimizing those body checking behaviors, we're just reducing some of that preoccupation that we may have with our bodies, which again opens up the space to begin to think about some other things.
This is really interesting because I had a huge issue with it wasn't kind of so much with my body, but it was more kind of like, how can I manage my body? And I remember before studying MNU, I didn't even realize that actually I had an eating disorder. And I just remember how much that impacted my life. So my whole life was everything about how I looked, and to kind of more really to control how I look by food and doing, let's say, specific exercise, like training. But now when I removed kind of what my body looks like and more how I feel like every single day, has completely shifted everything. And this is the interesting thing as well that I kind of talk with my clients, is to start focusing really on how they feel in their own body and to kind of focus more on different aspects of their health and life. And so how would you say, so obviously like you're doing as well is a flourishing health, is that right? So kind of what would be, so for you and your coaching, so kind of what are going to be like the key components for health? Because obviously it's quite broad area. So what would be for you that you're coaching your clients?
Yeah, so we're thinking about someone's physical health. We're also thinking about their psychological health and emotional well-being, like how do they feel day to day? And as you say, like attitudes towards ourselves are a big part of that. Their spiritual health, like philosophical health, are they engaging in things that are meaningful for them? So one exercise that I like to take clients through that they found really helpful is to think about their values. What types of qualities do they want to bring to their behaviors? You may want to be generous, kind, flexible, adventurous. And mostly people find that when they begin to think about their values, they see that there are certain values that are important to them that they're actually not aligned with at this moment in time. And it could be that somebody really values flexibility, but because they're concerned about how they look, they're actually pretty rigid in their diet, and that's impacting their life. And they'd wish that they could be more spontaneous and say yes to things when they're unplanned, even if it means going against their schedule. So these are just some examples to get people thinking, what is really important to you? Because at the end of the day, most people on a rational level would agree that, yeah, sure, my body, probably isn't the most important thing to me, but they feel that way and they behave as if it is. When you think about it, at the end of your life, if you want to think about your funeral, what do you really want people to say at the end of your life? Oh yeah, I really miss Shannon, she had such a great body, what a shame. Or would you rather that people are saying, she was such a great person, she did all of these amazing things, she was so kind, she had time for everyone, she was a great listener, she really understood, All of these are things that you'd probably want them to say. And then, you know, if they say at the end, oh, and she happened to look nice, well, that's just like the bonus on top, but it's not really what we care about. And I think that most people generally agree with that, but it's just difficult to stop yourself from behaving as if your body was really important because of all of these influences that we're under. So I think being mindful of that is really important, and being mindful on and aware of what you truly do care about. And I think due to the fact that there are so many things that can like guide us in different directions, we have to develop our own sense of where we want to go and constantly kind of come back to that to make sure that we're still heading in the right direction. So thinking about what's truly important to you as a person, the types of qualities that you'd like to bring to your behaviors, and then the types of actions that you can engage in that reflect those qualities. So if someone does value flexibility, that may mean for them, I'm not going to track my food anymore because I feel like, you know, I want to be able to just make decisions on the fly rather than planning everything in advance and weighing out all of my food for the rest of my life. Someone who values acceptance may want to be more accepting and kind towards themselves. They may find it easier to do that with other people and realize that actually they don't extend that same attitude towards themselves. And potentially they can set some goals based on that, which may look like challenging their self-talk and giving themselves a bit more patience and grace. So those would be a few things to, I guess, bolster someone's philosophical health. And then you've got your social well-being as well. So am I engaging in you know, meaningful relations with other people? Because the research indicates that our social connections are a very strong indicator, or they have a very strong impact on our health and well-being. I think there was one study that, I can't remember the metrics that they were assessing, but they found that there was nurses who would smoke, and the smoking offered them social connections because it's something that they would all do to manage stress together. So obviously you've got the physical effects of smoking that are quite harmful, but they found in general that those people were actually healthier because of the social connections than they were influenced, you know, by compared to non-smokers who didn't have those social connections, which is really quite shocking. And the relevance of this is, again, when someone is preoccupied with their appearance or very insecure about their appearance, that affects the way that they interact with other people. For example, someone with negative body image may think that this person is ignoring me because I'm not good enough, whereas maybe that person has just been busy and just didn't send a text because they were at work, you know, and had other things going on. But we tend to interpret the actions and intentions of other people through the way that we view ourselves as well. So by improving how we feel about ourselves, we may see changes in the way that we relate to other people as well, which I think is really quite important. So the approach that we take involves consideration of all of those different factors to help someone truly improve their well-being and their satisfaction with themselves, and I guess with their lives overall.
This is really interesting because I was just, while you were talking, I had it's kind of like a relationship issue, you know, like for example, when you're really unhappy about yourself and you are constantly seeking the approval or attention from your partner to feel better about yourself, and that can affect and put really massive strain on a relationship. But when you start taking care of yourself and doing things that make you happy, and that you basically take care of yourself, kind of the strain on relationship becomes less and less, and then you become much more fulfilled. So tell me about, because obviously I see a lot in your post, it's about the obsession and kind of the behaviors that, let's say, people who are really struggling, who can't let go, you know, who really want to control type, let's say the food intake, how they look, and so how they can start loosening up those tendencies so that they can just start being at peace and kind of feeling more in control, that they're actually free and they can go.
I think this really comes down to precisely why, you know, is someone so restrictive with their diet? Why are they so concerned about how they look? And the approach that you would take will depend on that reason why. It could be that someone is restrictive with their dieting because they believe it's the only way to lose the weight. And we can encourage them to think about not just the weight loss, but actually shifting perspective to focus on their overall health, which may help them to see that cutting out certain foods or skipping meals or eating foods that we don't like just because they're low in calories, these aren't really helpful ways of taking care of our health. And when we shift the focus to health, we're no longer changing because we don't like ourselves and we feel this urgent need to change. We're changing because we want to take care of ourselves in a better way, which involves eating nutrient-dense foods. It involves regular exercise, because these are the things that are health promoting. And we may see that our body composition changes as a result of that, but it's not our primary reason for making the change. It is not our measurement of success either. So I think just thinking about, what are my expectations here? What do I think that controlling my appearance is going to do for my life? And I think if you're looking for deeper social connections, if you're looking to be more attractive to your partner, what does that indicate? It indicates that actually what you're seeking is connection, not a change in your appearance. You just think that that's the solution to the thing that you want. When you can get to the root of it, you can then think about other ways that you might get that connection. How about reaching out to that friend that you haven't spoken to in a while, if that's what you're craving, is social connections? How about speaking to your partner about how you feel? Hey, I feel like we've been a little bit distant recently and I'm not sure why, but I really would like to spend some more time together. And I feel like maybe you can even just express how you feel. I feel like I'm not attractive to you, and just see what they say. You'll probably find that we tend to catastrophize the situations in our heads. And if we're able to talk about how we feel and what we want, then we're probably going to get one step closer to actually achieving that. So really thinking about your intentions for making a change, I think, is the first place to start. And really challenging some of the assumptions that you have. Where is the evidence to suggest that when you look a certain way, that suddenly your whole life will change? And are there other ways of getting the things that you think you want? And think about just how much of an impact your current behaviors are having on your life. Do you want to be restrictively dieting for the rest of your life? Do you want to be held back from social situations? Do you want to be obsessively monitoring your appearance and monitoring everything that you eat? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So just thinking about the degree of impact that it has on your life, I think, can be an important place to start. And then working on challenging some of those assumptions that you have in place, and placing your time and energy into the more important things or the things that you may have let slip, during this time. I really do think that talking about this with someone else is really helpful, because sometimes we can't see our own blind spots, and also sometimes we just need that support and encouragement. So whether that's a friend, a family member, or a professional, something along the lines of those avenues will be really good things to explore. If you want to have a go at improving your body image on your own, I really recommend the workbook from Thomas Cash, because he gives you some exercises to go through to help develop an awareness of exactly where you're at with your body image and the factors that have influenced it, and then some things that you can do to manage your experiences in the moment and also work towards reducing that negative body image. So that could be a very good place to start. But yeah, I think getting the support of someone else is really beneficial, because it can be challenging and upsetting, and being able to talk about how you're feeling is such a big part of the process.
It's really interesting, because I've had one client not long ago, and when I asked her about kind of what is her opinion about her body image, and she said her first initial reaction was, I hate my body. And when she said that, I could hear her kind of like stepping back. She's like, oh my God, I actually don't hate my body. But it's when people don't say it out loud, they internalize it, and they just get so consumed by it without even challenging it and actually putting a second thought, do I really feel about this, like this about my body? Okay, so in your post, I see obviously a lot like thoughts and emotions. It's kind of what is the emotions that you feel. So obviously when it comes to, I work with women to kind of overcome the emotional eating and to kind of notice the pattern of kind of why they eat their emotions. So so what is your kind of your point of view about that? So thoughts, emotions, and emotional eating, kind of what kind of how that goes for you.
Yeah. So, what many people aren't aware of is that our thoughts, emotions, and our behaviors are all kind of interrelated. So, the way that we think can affect how we feel and how we behave. The way that we behave can affect the way that we think and the way that we feel. So, they're all sort of tied up together. So, by understanding our thoughts, and how we're feeling, we can change our behavioral responses. So, with emotional eating, many people feel like I just need more willpower because I'm not in control of my food choices. I need to get rid of these foods from the house and just try harder to resist the temptation. What we don't realize is that actually the reason that we're eating when we're emotional is because it's offering some form of relief, whether that's avoiding the emotional experience at hand, seeking a sort of pick me up. It does work temporarily, but the issue is that in the long run, it serves to make us feel worse. And sometimes we can feel very guilty and shameful after eating, and maybe uncomfortable if we've eaten large amounts. And this could be influencing our physical health, but it's very likely to be influencing our psychological health. That's not to say that emotional eating is bad every single time. The real question is, is this making you feel worse in the short term and the long term? If the answer is yes, then we may want to look to the root of the problem. So how do you feel when you're driven to eat? If it's not hunger, what urge is driving you and what feeling is behind that? And it could be a number of things. It could be stress, boredom, loneliness, restriction, an argument with someone else has triggered you. All of these things can make it very difficult to regulate our emotions and regulate our food choices. So the first step is to realize that there is a reason that you are eating the things that you're eating, especially when it goes against your long-term goals, and it's not making you happy in the long term. There's actually a function that that food is serving you. So try and figure that out. Why am I driven to eat? How am I actually feeling right now? When you understand why you're doing the things you're doing, you're then able to think about, oh, okay, what might be a more helpful thing for me to do when I feel this way? If it's stress, maybe you need to talk to someone about how you're feeling. Maybe you need to get something off your chest. Maybe there's a problem that needs solving. Maybe there's something you can be proactive about to reduce the stress that you're feeling, or just to manage it in a different way. If you're lonely or sad, again, it's thinking about what would help me most in these situations. And you can come up with a whole list of alternative behaviors to help remind you that, do I really think this food is going to make me feel better? Is it going to solve the problem? And when you've got this other list of things that you could do, again, that gives you different ways of exploring how to best manage that experience. Sometimes you may decide to eat, and that's fine. Sometimes you may decide to do something else. That's fine. It's just about figuring out what's going to make me feel the best in the long run, what's going to support my health, and what's going to make me the happiest overall. So I think really thinking about, oh, actually, this isn't just a lack of willpower or a lack of control. It's more about understanding why you do the things that you're doing and then giving yourself different solutions. And that would be a really good way of managing emotional eating, because you're actually taking care of the emotions and the thoughts behind that and the needs that you're trying to fulfill through food.
It's interesting because I had to do counseling for myself, and it was a lot of work around thoughts and actually how thoughts emotions are created by thoughts. And it's interesting about emotional eating because people do feel like they have no control without actually, well, obviously it's just a bit like just lack of information and skills to actually feel empowered that they can step up and do something about it. So I've seen as well that you're doing comprehensive coaching. Is that right? This right. So could you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, so comprehensive coaching is something that I've been collaborating with Dr. Gabrielle Fundaro on for, yes, almost a year and a half now, actually. And it started with just some discussions that we were having about common issues that we saw in the industry. So we noticed that there was a lot of debate about things like, are diets harmful? What is intuitive eating? Should athletes be eating intuitively? And there was a lot of kind of misinformation and dogmatic opinions. So we decided to write an article to address a bit more of the context, a bit more nuance to the discussion, with the intention of creating like shared meaning and understanding. So we termed that article Bridging the Gap, and then ended up writing a whole article series. And then we thought, well, we just kind of came up with, I guess, a framework of coaching that would help us to continue to bridge the gap and to promote flourishing health, as we've spoken about, this broad perspective on health. So we define comprehensive coaching as the framework, the applied framework of kind of the Bridging the Gap movement. And so it's a conscientious approach to coaching that facilitates changes in a client's internal environment. So what's going on up here, to empower them to confidently, independently and intentionally respond to external challenges with beneficial adaptations in order to flourish. That sounds very wordy, but it's essentially about figuring out what you want, gaining that self-awareness, and being able to manage your behaviors in changing environments. With as well the direction of clear awareness of the direction that you want to go in, because health is very personal. I don't care what you care about. That's you. That's not up to me to decide. So it's about figuring out what a person wants out of their life and what they can do to best support that.
Okay, that sounds so interesting. Bridging the gap. So so when you mentioned intuitive eating, so what is your opinion about it? Or
yeah, well, part of the, I guess, debate or the misunderstanding about intuitive eating is that a lot of people believe that it simply means not tracking macros, listening to what your body wants, or only eating in response to your hunger and fullness cues, which isn't the entire picture. So intentional eating, intuitive eating, is actually an entire self-care framework. So it's about supporting your body and your, I guess, mind through gentle nutrition, letting go of food rules, and honoring your hunger and fullness, but also your satisfying like your cravings as well. So it doesn't mean simply eating all the foods that are available because you can. It's about asking yourself, what do I need right now in this moment, and how can I best support that, with the intention of improving your health and well-being rather than change your appearance. That would be another common misconception, is that it's just a non-tracking approach to dieting, which is not the case, because it's just weight neutral. We're not trying to intentionally change anything. We're just letting go of restrictive food rules. So it really was designed to break the cycle of chronic dieting. So it can be very effective for individuals who have been on diets like their entire life, and to help them rehabilitate their relationship with food. And when they do have a good relationship with food, again, it's up to you to decide what you want to do there with your intake and how you'd like to manage that. But analogy that I find quite useful is that many people want to try and like test their squat max when they're injured, and they have to go through that rehabilitation process to heal from their injury, so that they're in a healthy place to then go on to pursue further goals. So that's kind of how I like to think about intuitive eating, is that it can be a very effective framework to work towards or to work by when you're trying to kind of improve that relationship with food that's been damaged through restrictive dieting in the past.
Okay, so what would you say that for you for you personally, kind of what are the habits, how much time we have got? Oh, damn it. So what would be like the habits that you say that are really helping you to feel your best? What is that you are doing?
Me personally, or for my clients?
For you personally.
Oh, I have quite a few. So, of course, like the physical activity, I find really beneficial, just physically and mentally. So right now, this changes over time as well. I started off with weightlifting. I used to do netball growing up. I now do jujitsu, and some martial arts, and still some weightlifting on the side. I also like the yoga classes on offer here. So that would be one thing. But I also find that reading as well really improves my health, because I just find it really enjoyable. It opens up my mind a little bit more, and I consider that to be health promoting. One of the biggest things that I think I do that promotes my health is really paying attention to my social connections. So making the effort to make sure that when I'm planning my week, because my schedule is pretty flexible, it changes, I make sure that I intentionally plan in at least one or two social occasions per week, so that I'm not missing out on those connections. So time with my partner or time with my friends, preferably both would be great, just so, again, to really support my health. I think another thing would be, I like to journal every now and then. So I kind of keep tabs on how I'm feeling. So I usually do this in my training journal. So when I'm keeping track of my workouts, I'm also asking myself, how am I feeling right now? Paying attention to my energy levels, thinking about how stressed I may be feeling. So one thing that I've been doing since coming out here is getting a few more massages, because they're cheap out here. And I found that really relaxing and beneficial for my health as well. So I think like stress management is really important, particularly in the work that we both do, as coaches. It can be quite, when you're very empathic towards other people, it can have the effect of taking its toll on you emotionally. So you have to be really conscious of keeping that topped up within yourself as well. So I find things like having notifications turned off, not working beyond certain hours, or if I do, that's agreed upon in advance, and keeping to that and making sure that I have enough time for myself and for the people that I care about. That's been one of the biggest things, because although I really care about my career and helping people and the satisfaction that brings, I can only do that if I'm feeling my best. If I'm super tired and stressed out, I can't show up in the way that I would like for the people that I'm working with. So I have to manage all of that, I think, in order to feel healthy and to do a good job. So yeah, taking time off, I think, is really important. Getting enough sleep, maybe overlooked, that's super important. Eating foods that are healthy, nutritious, but also enjoyable. These are all sorts of things that I would say that I do that support my health.
Yeah, that is so great. I think it's yeah, we are kind of running out of time. Yeah, so what would you say that's kind of there are your non-negotiables, like for your mental health? So what are those things that you're doing every single day?
Yeah, I like that, because that's actually something that I implement with clients as well, is we talk about our 3 non-negotiables. So for me, I'd probably say that some physical activity during the week tends to be a non-negotiable. I don't like to let those slip. So I kind of plan those in advance for a time that I enjoy working out, and then manage things around that. Sleep would be another big one, but those are more so from, I guess, well, both. Again, that's physical and psychological well-being. But a big non-negotiable for me is, yeah, taking that time with the people that I care about. I would never want to get to the end of my week and have realized I haven't spent time with anyone else, because I've just been focusing on work or exercise or anything like that. I think that's probably something that's had like the biggest impact on my health. So yeah, taking time for loved ones. I also find that the reading is quite a big one as well, because for whatever reason, it really does relax me. And if I've gone a few days where I haven't read much, then I start to feel a little bit stressed or uninspired, something along those lines. So that would be one thing. And I also do quite like walking outside, particularly here because it's sunny. There's a lot of greenery around, so I really like getting outside in nature if I can, and I think that's really supportive of my health as well, just because it's very relaxing, and I think that's important. So just being a little bit more mindful when I can day to day as well.
Okay, and the last question before kind of where we can find you. What would you recommend 3 books that you would say for someone who is there, who has negative body image, but someone basically to start feeling so much better about themselves? So 3 books.
Right. Yeah, I really recommend, okay, I've got a few. So I've got the Thomas Cash workbook. If you want something practical to work through, I really recommend starting there. Another one that I'm a huge fan of is The Myth of Self-Esteem by Albert Ellis. And he talks about how self-esteem is conditional. So we feel good about ourselves when we achieve certain things or when we've got the approval from other people, which is problematic because then we feel bad about ourselves when we're not doing well. And at some point, because we're all fallible human beings, we are going to fall short of our expectations. So he talks about how to develop self-acceptance, unconditional self-acceptance. So valuing yourself for the virtue of being a human being and not tying your self-worth to your accomplishments or approval from other people. So I think that could be quite relevant for people struggling with their body image. And then I also recommend Emotional Agility by Susan Davies. So she talks about basically like the function of different emotions and how we can manage those, because emotions are, have a huge impact on our overall well-being, and being able to understand why you feel the way that you do, I think really empowers you to make choices that are going to support you in the long term. And we can tend to look at emotions in 2 categories, as good or bad, positive or negative, but that really isn't the case. There's like a reason why we experience quote unquote negative emotions, and they serve a function. So being able to develop a healthy relationship with those experiences is really important. And if you want to go more into the values side of things, then I think books by Russ Harris and Steve Hayes, so they have a couple of them. The Weight Escape is a good one if you've been trying to intentionally lose weight, by Russ Harris. And I also like Steve Hayes's A Liberated Mind. And again, this is just to encourage you to think about, what are all the things that are important to me, and how have I been holding myself back, and how can I overcome that to live a life that's very satisfying and fulfilling to me on the whole. So yeah, those would be 4 or 5, however many recommendations to start with.
Well, that is fantastic. So where we can find, or where my clients can find you, because I love your social media. So
So I'm probably very active, mostly active on Instagram. So that's at Shannon Beer _. I also recommend having a look at my website as well, which is shannonlbeer.com. As I said, I have got articles on, why we care about how we look, how to work on our body image, what health means to us, how to challenge our self-talk, how to gain awareness of our thought patterns. All of that can be found on my website. And I also have a bookshelf there as well for more book recommendations, lots of features that I've been featured in, and also my own podcast. So I think the website there is probably the best place to figure out more about all of that.
Well, Shannon, thank you so much for joining us. I will share this link obviously later on, but yeah, thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward for our second interview that's going to probably so thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to speak with you soon.
Awesome. Me too. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.